I want you to imagine for a second what it's like to be on the absolute front lines of the climate crisis. For Pakistan, that's not some far-off threat. It's today's reality. So today, we're going inside this scientific brain trust that's arming the entire country with the knowledge it needs to survive. So to really get why this institution is so incredibly important, you first have to understand the sheer scale of what they're up against. For Pakistan, climate change isn't a problem for the future. It is a clear and present danger. And here's the really tough part. It's such a cruel irony, right? Pakistan contributes less than 1% of global emissions, yet it's getting hit with a massively disproportionate share of the consequences. We're talking about devastating floods, glaciers melting at an alarming rate, and just scorching heat waves, and it's all happening right now. Well, that brings up a huge question. When your country's very survival is at stake, where do you even turn? Who do you ask for the data, for the models, and for the strategies you need to navigate a crisis this big? Well, the answer lies with this one-of-a-kind organization. It's basically the nation's scientific command center, a think tank that wasn't built for just theory, but for survival. Okay, so it's called the Global Climate Change Impact Study Center, or GCISC for short. It operates directly under the Ministry of Climate Change, and its mission is crystal clear. Be the country's brain trust. Provide the hard science that can directly inform national policy. And you know, these guys have been on this mission for over 20 years now. It all started back in 2002, when it became the country's first ever dedicated climate research center. Then, a huge step in 2013, it was granted autonomous status, which gave it real independence. And today, its role is more critical than it's ever been, providing the scientific backbone for all of Pakistan's commitments under the Paris Agreement. So, what does being the scientific backbone of a country actually look like day to day? Let's get into how GCISC takes all this complex data and turns it into real, life-saving action. The center's work is basically divided into three critical areas. First up, you've got climatologists running these super high-resolution models and keeping track of greenhouse gas emissions. Then, you have glaciologists whose job is to monitor the Himalayan glaciers, often called the world's third pole. And finally, agriculture experts are tackling a massive question. How is climate change going to impact the nation's food and water? And I want to be clear, this isn't just abstract science locked away in a lab. We're talking about their researchers heading out on high-altitude missions to see glacier melt firsthand. Their modelers are predicting the water flow for the entire Indus River Basin. And their data analysts, they're compiling the official national greenhouse gas inventory that gets reported to the whole world. You know, this quote from the executive director, it really just nails the heart of their mission. He says it's about transforming climate action into people-centered, justice-driven, and future-proof solutions. In other words, the science has to serve the people, the communities who are right there on the front line. Okay, so you have all this incredible research. But how does that actually help build a more resilient nation? Well, it's a journey, from pure science to national policy, and even to international diplomacy. Think of GCISC as this essential bridge. They do the research, they partner up with others, they train people, and then, and this is key, they advise. They deliver clear, evidence-based recommendations straight to the policymakers. This is exactly how science gets off the shelf and into the real world where it can make a difference. And this is where things get really interesting because you see their unique dual role. At home, they are the go-to scientific advisors for government ministries. But on the world stage, they are Pakistan's technical voice at UN climate conventions and a key partner for global bodies like the IPCC. And make no mistake, the expertise we're talking about here is absolutely world-class. The IPCC, that's the United Nations body that provides the definitive scientific reports on climate change. It is the gold standard. So having your scientists chosen as lead authors for these reports, that's a huge deal. It's a massive stamp of approval of their global credibility and influence. So all of this expertise, all this research, all this policy advice, it all comes together for one single purpose. And honestly, the stakes have never been higher. At the end of the day, this is the goal. By providing this unbreakable foundation of data and analysis, GCISC gives Pakistan the power to make the smartest decisions possible to protect its people, its economy, and its environment from the worst that climate change has to throw at it. The challenge, of course, is just immense. Not just for Pakistan, but for the entire world. An institution like GCISC provides the scientific roadmap, but the journey itself, that takes political will and incredibly urgent action. And that really leaves us with the ultimate question. In this race against a rapidly changing climate, can science and policy actually move fast enough to win?